There's some weird account on Twitter. I don't know what the story is behind it, but they apparently don't like Bernie Sanders, but they've been doing incredible work for Bernie Sanders. This is a clip from 1988.
89.
80.
It looks like February 3rd, 89.
Oh, excuse me. Okay, but they're talking about the 88 race, right? February 3rd, 1989. So this was on C-SPAN. Bernie Sanders, I believe, if this is 89, I think he was probably in between being mayor of Burlington and getting elected to the House. He was elected to the House, I think, in either 92 or 90. So this question is about the Jesse Jackson 1988 campaign. It's no secret, and again, a kind of funny irony of this attempt to, of a lot of the kind of smears and disingenuous narratives about Bernie Sanders. He did, in fact, strongly support Jesse Jackson's presidential run in the late 80s. Now, I don't think he, frankly, should get extra credit for it either. It's just, frankly, that he was a progressive leader, and Jesse Jackson ran the most progressive campaign. In fact, if you listen to some of the conversations I've done with Bill Fletcher Jr., who's just indispensable, and please everybody find Bill Fletcher Jr. Brilliant. I mean, really one of the most important people you could be reading and listening to today, both on this program and then much more specifically in an illicit history for TMBS of the Jesse Jackson campaign, which he worked on. We have actually outlined some of the ways in which the specific concepts of the Rainbow Coalition and ideas of that campaign, including, though, also, frankly, just some specific talents that Jesse Jackson has as a campaigner, Bernie didn't replicate as effectively as he could have done in 2016 and should in 2020 if he runs again. But that being said, of course he supported Jesse Jackson, and he'll explain why. And it appears to be that this is that really the account?
Yeah, never underscore Bernie. Not affiliated with any presidential candidate. Has 102 tweets, 27. It's following 27 people and has 45 followers. But this tweet has been viewed 124,000 times.
All right. Well, thank you, whatever the idiot behind this account is. I guess the angle they're going for here is Bernie's concern about the Democratic Party. But it's just a good time to remind everybody that Bernie Sanders was a strong supporter of Jesse Jackson.
Hard to find one anymore. And I want to know what you thought of Reverend Jesse Jackson's campaign, whether you agreed with most of those points that he was making. And I want to give you one little footnote that's of some interest, I think. My nieces had uncles on both sides of their families, their mothers and their fathers, named Eugene V, as in Victor.
Right. In Burlington, we had a real debate about our attitude toward Jesse Jackson's campaign. I think many of us were impressed by the positions that Jackson was bringing forth. We were deeply impressed by the concept of the Rainbow Coalition, which I believe is exactly what has to be done in this country. And we were impressed by Jackson's charisma and his going into the ghettos and into the poor areas and speaking for the family farmers who were being thrown off of their land. And that moved us very much. The problem that we had is that, of course, Jackson was functioning within the Democratic Party, and we're not Democrats. So we had a discussion within our own organization, and we ended up saying, yeah, we're not Democrats, but we think what Jackson was doing was so important that we are going to support him. And for one night in Vermont, we did go into the Democratic Party, and in fact, Jackson ended up winning the Democratic caucuses. So I was sympathetic to Jackson. I agree with the concept of the Rainbow Coalition. I do disagree with Jesse in terms of whether the Democratic Party can be the real vehicle for social change. I believe it should be a third party.
Well, of course, Bernie has sort of revised himself and actually ended up following Jesse Jackson's direction on that practically, even though he still is an independent. And they actually maintained a decent relationship. I don't recall whether Jesse Jackson stayed neutral in 2016, although I think he might have actually endorsed Bernie, although he also has a close relationship with the Clintons in spite of some enormously disrespectful treatment that Bill Clinton delivered Jesse Jackson in the 90s. And Jesse Jackson certainly has his own highly complicated and problematic, probably more populist than left politics. If you listen to, some of Bill Fletcher's analysis, and Bill Fletcher's also worked on that campaign, as I keep saying, one of the most astute people in American politics by far, Bill Fletcher Jr. But yeah, what a monster. There's Bernie again, beating the drum for white nationalism. I mean, it's just gotten so demented, especially as somebody, and I will always say this, who was a strong Bernie supporter. As soon as he announced, I knew, of course, I would support him because I'm progressive. But I thought the first several protests he faced, the first couple of protests from Black Lives Matter, were excellent. They were correct to protest him and other candidates in and of itself, period. And in fact, in his case, they made him a much better candidate. But, now some of the stuff I just see about him is just, it's just so cynical and breathtakingly disingenuous and absurd. And the kind of vendetta against him, look, it will never stop being just utterly bizarre. And again, I'll throw one more in the mix. I say this as somebody who, I told people, and we reflected, I believe, 91% of Bernie primary voters, because only 90 didn't vote for Hillary Clinton in the general election, who said, of course, if you're in a swing state, vote for Hillary Clinton. And in fact, I ended up voting for Hillary Clinton in New York because I was so, the whole Jill Stein thing is another thing, but the Green Party's argument about change was so moralistic and non-strategic that it wasn't even a satisfying protest vote. So I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to vote for the first woman president. That's something cool in and of itself. But I'm sitting here and I'm tabling support for the coup in Honduras, support for the bankruptcy bill, support for crime legislation, you can just go on and on and on and on, all on a policy level. Haiti. And yet, some people on the other side of that equation maintain a just bizarre, cultish, fanatical hatred of the guy, which is just breathtaking. And again, I say this as somebody who's like, I'll disagree with you if you don't support him in 2020. I'll strongly disagree, but cool, whatever. Vote for who you need to vote for. You have a criticism of him that's legitimate, like a Bill Fletcher Jr.'s, excellent. I want to hear it. But so much of what's marshaled against him is just a response to a fiction that people have created in their heads about him, or maybe bad response to people that support him on social media, but not him. And, I think clips like that are a good reminder.